Museum. We've had a quiet couple of months, as you all know, on the Janal front, with the museum's summer activities for children taking up much of our time and attention. We had requests from some of you also. When is the next Janal talk going to happen? And here today, we are finally able to bring you a fitting reply with the esteemed Dr. Pius Malekandathil launching season 3 with us. I extend a warm welcome to you, sir. Now, a bit of background to the Janal project. As many of you know, the Kerala Museum aims to be a vibrant beacon of the arts in Kochi. Set up in 1987, it was the dream of R. Madhavan Nair, who even then recognized the need for a cultural institution that could lead and influence learning in history, the fine arts, and performing arts in the city. In 2022, to mark its 35th year in existence, the museum embarked on a program to create the Janal Digital Archives, a curated selection of photo essays, digital exhibitions, and talks by drawing on micro-histories of people and communities from Kerala. The archive also takes contributions, and we are happy and proud to announce that in the past 2 months, we have been gifted a wonderful collection of photographs on Kerala in the early 1980s by Canadian origin scholar and researcher Robin Jeffrey. Many of you whom, I don't know if you all have heard of him, he's written Decline of Nair Dominance. And these will form the starting points of our inquiry together this season of Janal Talks. We look forward to this journey with you all. About our speaker today, he needs no introduction, but Dr. Pius Malekandathil, former professor at the Center for Historical Studies, JNU, 2006 to 2021, is currently Vicar General of the Syro-Malabar Diocese of Kodamangalam, Kerala. He pursued research in Lisbon and postdoctoral work at Heidelberg University. He taught at St. Thomas College, Pala, Goa University, and Sri Shankara University, Kaladi. He has presided over key sessions of the National History Congresses and was appointed to the University of Lisbon's External Scientific Advisory Committee 2025. Recipient of the KCBC Vijnana Award in 2021, his most notable works include Maritime Malabar 2022 and The Indian Ocean in the Making of Early Modern India 2016. The Janal Talks series is part of the programming around the Janal Digital Archives. It's where we make all of our work open to the public. The Geojit Foundation supports the Janal Archives and builds on the museum's founder, Madhavan Nair's dream of making history accessible to all. We'd like to acknowledge our founder, our funders, as well as the team behind Geojit who helps us, supports us through the process of bringing out each talk, supports us through the project as well, before we kick off this season 3. Before the lecture, I want to remind you of a few house rules. Please keep your mobile phones on silent for the duration of the lecture. The lecture will be for 45 minutes, followed by a Q&A, where we will take a maximum of 5 questions. So do note down your questions and be ready. Some of you who are online with us today can please send in your questions on YouTube on the comments section. Lastly, everyone has their own beliefs and perspectives. Let's make an effort to respect each other's while sharing our views today. Now, I warmly welcome Dr. Pius Malekandathil to deliver his talk.
Dear esteemed Professor Michael Taragan, Ms. Aditi Zacharias, esteemed scholars and experts in the field and researchers, I'm extremely delighted to stand before you to deliver this lecture in the general series. I'm thrilled in the sense so many experts, so many inquisitive minds are there to see the meanings of pepper cultivation, pepper trade, that actually sustain the economy of Kerala for a long period of time. The title of this paper is Pepper, Landscape and Memory, Pepper in the Shaping of Kerala's History. One of the important commodities that has been traded at the overseas level, the international market, from time immemorial, happened to be pepper. And it played a significant role in shaping its historical fate. Pepper fetched bullions from across the world, helping it to adjust its trade balances and trade deficits. It also strengthened the hands of the rulers who controlled pepper-producing hinterlands and pepper trading centers. And they used pepper trade as a mechanism to assert their superior position in the power process in Kerala. The enclaves of pepper production and pepper trade happened to be the hubs of wealth concentration. And also they became the centers for cultural and artisanal production over the years. This is a large geography that we see on the screen. In the global at the global level, Kerala is the only region that produced pepper at least till 7th century AD. No other part of the world ever produced pepper till 7th century. In the 7th century, pepper slowly the 7th century slowly spread to Java and Sumatra. By 15th century, it spread to Aceh. Then by 17th century, it spread to Vietnam and Brazil. It was in 1695 that the first seedlings of pepper were being taken from Cochin, from Madhadev's College of the Jesuits to Brazil. So the spread of pepper cultivation happened as a part of the extension of pepper trajectory of Kerala. Because the singular position that Kerala occupied in the world as the prime producer of pepper for a long span of time, a wide variety of activities connected with the production, transportation, and trade and processing of pepper, and conversion of pepper into different types for consumption. They happen to be the core components of the economic past of Kerala. Next slide. And pepper till 18th century was linked with a certain type of lifestyle, often connected with the elitism. As a luxury item, it was in circulation. And pepper has been one of the major components for medication in China, as well as in India, also in Egypt and Persia. In all the greater civilizations, we find pepper being an important component for medication, for healing and for curing sickness of different nature. The 1st century AD, the medicinal properties were known to the Romans, as is being evident in Materia Medica, written by Dioscorides. Interestingly, because of the economic value and the meaning attached to pepper and the medicinal properties that it had got, we find pepper being demanded by people in power, people who want to usurp power. They want to consider pepper as a commodity that they can easily make use of for their power assertions. The Visigoth ruler Alaric I, he demanded 70 sacks of pepper, about 3,000 pounds of pepper, for lifting the siege on the city of Rome in 410. They would indicate the nature of the uses that pepper had over period in the early classical period. Next slide. A great part of Europe and many other countries across the globe experienced extreme winter, and many regions had snowfall, sometimes with minus degrees. The snow height would be 1 meter, 2 meters, depending upon the regions where the snowfall is being felt. And no blade of grass would be grown that period of time. So usually at the beginning of the winter, 1/3 of cattle, in some countries, 2/3 of the cattle were being killed for reasons of fodder scarcity and food scarcity. And because there was no hay or grass to feed the cattle, so the cattle were being conserved, and a chunk of cattle were being killed and they were being preserved using pepper. And for adding flavor, pepper was being again used. So this is the normal reason for pepper demand across the globe. In Ayurvedic tradition, for almost all the sickness connected with the Vata, Pitta, and Kapha, pepper was an important ingredient. Among the Chinese, medicinal practices included pepper, which they used to call hujiao, particularly for warming up stomach and the spleen, and for treating diarrhea, vomiting, and abdominal pain. And Chinese junks were frequent in Kerala coast for procuring pepper. And in 1540s, about 12 to 15 Chinese junks were seen in Cochin taking pepper to China. A lot of Tamil passages in Sanskrit literature refer to pepper being taken to Roman Empire through maritime channels up to Meos, Hormuz, and Bernige, from where they have been taken with the help of camels across the desert to Nile, and they have been taken. The pepper was being taken to Alexandria for further distribution in Roman Empire. And the Evenas used to come with the gold and wine to procure pepper. So we find this is the picture. This is the Pythagorean table prepared in the 4th century. The major centers of pepper production are mentioned here: Tindis, and in the northern part we find Naura. Naura is equated with the Kannur. Tindis is equated with Ponnani. Mysore is the major trade center, is equated with either Pattanam or with Karanganur. I am not going into a controversy. Then Bakare is identified with the Porakkad, and Nelkinda is identified with the Niranam. These were the major centers of pepper trade for the Romans. Over a period of time, these same places figure in different sources as major supplying centers, as pepper ports in the years to come. Kannur was an important trade center for pepper trade for a long period of time, till recently. Pepper coming from Ancharakandi, pepper coming from Kannur and neighborhood, reached Dharmapattanam or Vadapattanam, or to Kannur, and then they have been taken to different marts in Asia and Europe. Similarly, Ponnani, pepper coming from Bharatapuzha, reached Ponnani, from where it was taken to different parts. Mysore is located on the banks of River Periyar, again an important center for collection of pepper and redistribution. Same case with Nelkinda or Niranam or Porakkad, located on the banks of Pampa. Why these places are recurringly figuring? The main reason, these ports had rich pepper producing hinterland in the neighborhood. And these areas happen to be the major centers of pepper production, whether during the early period or medieval period, during the early modern period, or during the period of the British. These same areas produce pepper, and these same maritime doors happen to be the channels through which the pepper produced in the interior parts were being taken to global markets. Out of these several ports, Tindis, Musuris, Bakare, and Nelkinda, and Naura, Musuris evolved as the major pivotal port, subjugating all other ports as satellite ports. So pepper gave the local rulers, the early Cheras, the the ability to subjugate the other ports or the chieftains connected with other ports and make them subordinate to the prime ruler and keep this hierarchy not only in the port activities but also in the power process. This we see in the later period as well. The cheras, this is the terrain that the cheras controlled. Purananuru refers to sacks of pepper piled beside the building, become confusing on the bustling seafront. Articles of gold brought by sea vessels are carried to shore by boats in the estuary. Gold has been brought in return for pepper taken from the chera ports of coastal Kerala. Different ships were coming to Kerala coast. Strabo estimates 120 vessels annually moving from Yos Hormuz and Bernike, reaching Bab el Mandeb, and half of which used to go to Ariake, that is Arivartam, the northern ports. Almost half of the vessels used to reach Limrike, that is Kerala, and took pepper from the Kerala ports. One single ship, that is Karmapolon, mentioned in the papyrus document of Vienna of 1985, discovered in 1985. In this document, mention is made about a maritime loan agreement being made between two merchants, one taking commodity from Musuris and finally supplying it, taking all the way up to Alexandria and giving back the loan at Alexandria. This is the content of the Musuris papyrus of 1985, obtained from Vienna. The ship mentioned in the document is Hermophilon. And the value of the trade happened to be 1,154 Egyptian talents and 2,852 drachmae. Frederico Romanis equates its value to almost 7 million sesterces. And he argues that 88.6% of the cargo happened to be pepper. So this will indicate the nature of pepper movement happening from Kerala from early time onwards. It also indicates the amount of wealth that was flowing back. The pepper movement was not for any ordinary commodity, but for a huge wealth flow in return. The flow of wealth augmented the power of the local rulers. And we find, interestingly, in the recent excavation that happened in Pattanam, 2 Chera coins were being obtained from Pattanam site. Coins would mean mechanism to oil the wheels of trade. When the local rulers are minting coins, that would mean they had a desire to oil the wheels of commerce. And minting of coins would mean stamping of authority, political authority, assertion of power. That would mean the wealth that is coming here did not stop here. It went into the augmentation of power of the local rulers. Whatever be the nature of the wealth that is coming here, they used a part of it to assert their superiority, to assert their position in the region. Pliny, he was the procurator and very much closely associated with Vespasian. He estimates the value of pepper trade to be around 50 million sesterces. He says that almost 50 million sesterces flowing to the land of Ceres, Cheras. People say that it's Chinese, but usually the word uses Ceres. 50 million sesterces would mean 12.5 million denarii. That would mean 5 lakh average gold coin. That roughly represent 0.5% of Roman GDP. A huge outflow of wealth from Rome for procuring pepper. And this would in turn mean huge inflow of wealth in this part of the country and right from the ancient period onwards. These are journals of trade of those days. A portion of pepper money that reached Kerala for procuring pepper has been now seen in the form of Roman gold hoards or coins obtained from different parts of Kerala. Hoards are being discovered, average and denarii were being discovered unearthed from Punyar, Idukki, Pudankav, Kumbalam, Valluvalli, Kottayam, EL, Pollachi, Karur, and so many places located on the slopes of high ranges. They are shadow of the huge amount of wealth that entered Kerala through these channels of trade, through Tindis or Musuris or Nilkinda and Bakari. Now, what about the geography? We find pepper is transforming the landscape, reshaping the landscape. Periplus of Ethraean Sea refers to Quaternary as the geography from where pepper is being grown and collected. Pliny calls it as Cotonora, and Ptolemy refers to as Cotiare. Pliny locates Cotonora on the banks of river Baris river Pamba, is often equated with the Pamba, and Bakari is Poracade. Ptolemy says that it is located on the southern part of Nelkinda or Melkinda, that is Neranam. So, in the 1st century or 2nd century AD, it was cultivated in the southern part of Pamba river or in the neighborhood of Pamba and Poracade and Neranam. But by 4th century, when Pöttingerian table has been prepared, Kottanad or Kotiare has been located in the southern part of Musuris. It's not a mistake, but rather it indicates the extension of pepper cultivation that happened from Nelkinda or Neranam up to Kanganur, meaning the increasing demand for pepper went hand in hand with increasing expansion of pepper cultivation in the hinterland. And Kottanare or Kotiare it actually stands for Kuttanad, though it was a pepper growing area in the ancient period. Now it's a waterlogged area. It's a low-lying area. But thanks to the geophysical changes, these type of changes happen over time, and no trace of pepper growth pepper cultivation is seen in the locality at present. This is a picture given in Christian topography by Cosmos Indicoplastus. He refers for the first time to the medicinal and botanical properties of pepper in 545. It's been argued that he visited Kerala. Some others say that no, he did not visit Kerala. Whatever be the truth of the arguments, clear that the information about the medicinal knowledge of pepper and the medicinal properties of pepper is being already there in circulation. It is being incorporated into the book Christian Topography. So what I have been trying to say about the ancient historical process is that there is some sort of geography connected with the pepper production, certain set of ports linked with the pepper trade, and the desire of the rulers to appropriate surplus from the trade, to stamp their authority and to establish their supremacy in the power process. And there is a group of people who are being involved in specialized production of paper. By 8th century, there's a long distance trade taking up in full-fledged form. From Basra or Sohar or in Muscat, vessels started their movement up to Canton in South China. It used to take 90 days. 30 days they took to reach Koilon, that is which has been called Kulam Mali in Guinness papers and Arab sources, and Gulin in Chinese documents. There are another 30 days to reach Kedah in Malay Peninsula, and another 30 days to reach Canton. 90 days journey they used to take. In this process of long distance commodity movement and people movement, we find Kulam Mali or Kurakeni Kollam in local language emerging as a pivotal port. And eventually, Mussoorie has been relegated to background. A port geography, a port hierarchical geography has been evolving. The old geography, old hierarchy is being reshaped to us to form new hierarchy, new port hierarchy, with Kurakeni Koilam as the prime port, as the pivotal port, and all other pepper supplying ports as satellite ports. Pandrani Koilam is figuring very much in Guinness papers. Guinness papers refer to the trade documents that the Jewish traders noted down and kept in the Guinness of Cairo, that has been published in the recent past during the last 70 years Almost all the papers are being transcribed and being published in English now, thanks to efforts of S.D. Goitin. And Mount Daly, Klanganur, at that point of time was called Singly. These ports were made to be the satellite ports. We find some sort of organized, systematic cultivation practice evolving. When John Marignoli visited Coilon, he refers to pepper plantation Coilon. We don't find the same type of organized plantation cultivation in the 14th century, but some effort towards organization of cultivation activity, systematization of cultivation activity, and cultivation activity with a single crop. That tradition has already come into practice by 14th century, and it is that the St. Thomas Christians of Coilon were the principal cultivators and the proprietors of pepper. In 1529, the Portuguese write to King of Portugal, John III, that all the pepper going to Portugal is being produced and sold by St. Thomas Christians. So we find a certain category of people. No, don't think that only St. Thomas Christians were involved in pepper cultivation. They were the major pepper cultivating groups. Yeavas were also equally involved. But what we find is there is a specialized group, people knowing the techniques of pepper cultivation, who knew about the care that the seedling needed, who knew about the cutting of the branches of the supporting stem, who knew about the season when planting is to be done, who knew about the time period when manure is to be given. So a specialized activity started coming up during this period of time, and this is being inferred from the different sources that we find during this period of time. Let me say something about the price and the price difference at different centers of trade and how this price difference actually attracted people as magnet to get into trade and to fetch profit out of the entire exercise. The Jewish letters of 11th century refers to one sack of pepper being brought from Kerala at the price of 5 dinars, being sold at Aden at the price of 52 dinars, Cairo at 135 dinars, Nestle. 135 dinars, and Maghreb 130 dinars. So the commodity is same, volume is same, but the price difference is there in different centers of trade due to the reasons of scarcity of the commodity, due to the reasons of high demand for this commodity. And this high demand for the commodity in different markets made the traders get into the trade. You know, the pepper trade at that point of time is a bulky thing because it is to be carried in vessels, and if you lose the thing in a shipwreck, it's gone. At the entry point and the exit point, you have to pay the tax. Loading and unloading is equally burdensome. And the risks are many. Cost of protection cost is equally high. But still people used to get into trade thanks to the price difference, which would mean the profit difference. The Mamelukes, during the time of the Mamelukes, who controlled trade in 1428 as a state monopoly, the price of pepper at Calicut, 4.64 ducats, the Venetian monetary device. Alexandria, the price was for 25 ducats. Venice, 56 ducats. And Lisbon, 80 ducats. So what I would like to say is that at the global level, at the European level, the price was high. That is the reason why the Portuguese started the geographic explorations and they wanted to procure spices from the very source. At the local level, the price happened to be at the lower level. But despite that, despite the price being so low, it fetched great amount of wealth to Kerala over years. This is the point that I would like to say. This is the picture of a sheep obtained from the Genuesa peppers that the Jewish traders used for commodity movement in the 11th and 12th century. The Jewish traders linked with the Cairo Geniza and operating from Fatimid Egypt used to bring to Kerala copper and paper. Paper was not produced in Kerala at that point of time. There was no copper mine in India at that point of time. Khetri mines were there in Rajasthan during the Harappan times, but there was no copper mine after that. But we find copper utensils, bronze utensils, and brass utensils all over Kerala, in all the aristocratic families, in all temples, Varp, Kuttagam, Uruli, and so many other bronze and copper utensils are there. And the flow of copper starts with the Jewish traders and became intense during the time of the Portuguese. That we'll discuss it later. We find Jewish trader Mahrus bin Jacob was a ship-owning Jewish merchant conducting trade with the ports of Konkan, Goa, Singapore, and with the Mansroot, and also with the Egypt, Aden, and Fatimid Cairo, and Fandrina Koilon, and Patranasamigal Pandrina Koilon collaborated with the Mahrus bin Jacob. There's a local collaboration, a partnership evolving between the Jewish traders and the local traders. So pepper became a commodity that attracted people to move together, to revolt together around the same commodity for reasons of collective commodity procurement, commodity distribution, and profit sharing. And this practice of partnership we find in the years to come during the time of Portuguese as well. In the 13th, 14th centuries, we find intensification of pepper trade in the ports of Kerala. The Mamluks of Egypt, they used the help of the Al-Karimi traders from Cairo to fetch pepper from Calicut. With the increasing flow, with the increasing demand from from Mamluk Egypt for pepper, we find the chief of the Nedirupa Surubam shifting his base from Yernad, located in the neighborhood of Nalambur, transferring his base from Yernad to Calicut and occupying the port of Calicut after having defeated Polatiri, the ruler of Calicut. And eventually he became Samuri. So what I'm trying to say is that rulers from the inland, from the agrarian enclaves, they started shifting their political base from inland agrarian enclaves, and they moved to trade centers, evidently with the desire to bag a share of the profit coming through trade. There's a desire to appropriate trade surplus for state building ventures. And the first evident case is that of the Samurin, who shifted his base from Yernad and occupying Calicut after having defeated the legitimate authority, and then started controlling the trade of Calicut. And henceforth, he became Samuri and he became the legitimate ruler of Calicut. And then he expanded his authority down to south, up to Cochin, using the surplus coming from trade and occasionally from agrarian surplus as well. We find the chief of Piramidapa Surupam, he was also residing at Vanneri in the neighborhood of Paradapura near Ponnani, again an agrarian enclave. He shifted his base from agrarian enclave of Vanneri. He moved to Mahodeyapuram, where in Mahodeyapuram he gave copper plates to Iravi Korten, about which we are all familiar. From Mahodeyapuram then he moved to Cochin, which happened to be a territory occupied by the Edapalli rulers. So we find the movement of rulers from inland landlocked areas to the maritime trade centers, obviously with the purpose of bagging a share of the profit coming from trade. Pepper playing its role, or pepper being brought as a commodity for political assertion, and using this political process for augmenting their power and authority in the region, and occupying port would mean further augmentation of their power and the further building process of the state. So this is what we notice in the 14th century and 15th century. This Calicut, a picture of Calicut has been drawn in 1571. And he kept, Samarin kept a port hierarchy, formulated a port hierarchy, keeping Calicut as the prime port and keeping all other ports as satellite ports. So what we find is, something should say, what is the nature of pepper consumption in Europe? That would tell you, for want of documents, I cannot give continuous information, but in Germany, in the city of Cologne, which had 30,000 residents at point of time, there are 45 shops selling 91,342 pounds of pepper during the period between 1452 and 1459. 91,342 pounds of pepper during the gap of 7 years in Germany, in Cologne, in city of Cologne, which had a population of only 30,000. To the period between 1460 and 68, there are 43 shops in the city for sale of 1,11,499 pounds of pepper. Meaning, this is the nature of pepper consumption in European cities. There is no other source for pepper to reach Europe. If this be the case with Cologne city alone, then what would have been the case with Venice and with other cities in Europe, or with Scandinavian countries, or with northern European cities? So this is the nature of consumption that's happening in Europe in the mid-15th century, which would mean the level and the scale of pepper movement from Kerala post that point of time, and the nature of pepper production happening in the pepper hinterland of Kerala. I thought of mentioning something about the cultural notions and meanings about pepper that developed during the so-called medieval period in Europe, that is in circulation thanks to the letter of Professor John. And Professor John says that pepper was grown in a forest, but it was guarded by snakes. Since the forest was infested with venomous snakes, pepper could not be plucked from the tree. So people could not go and climb the tree and pluck the peppercorns because it is being infested with venomous snakes. So what they used to do is they burnt down the entire forest by setting fire. Once the trees are burnt, the pepper plants would also be burnt, but the peppercorns won't be burnt. The peppercorns would get mixed with the venom of the snake. Because of the mixing of the venom of the snake, the peppercorns get the medicinal property and the healing property. This is the cultural understanding about pepper. It's distance from the actuality, we all know that. But pepper, in the process of its movement, different stories it created. Different fascinating in the narratives it created. In Germany in the 14th century, in the Swabic cities of Germany, Augsburg, Nuremberg and Ulm and Memmingen, the notion was that pepper, they used to get pepper from Venice. So they consider pepper as a Venetian commodity. Though the original pepper was from Kerala, they could not understand the actuality because there's no source to cross-check the authenticity. Since the Venetian traders supplied the pepper in South German cities, they thought that pepper was a Venetian commodity. So in the process of movement of commodity of pepper, different perceptions, different meanings, different cultural understandings were being woven around this commodity. That's with Europe. A long chain of ports appeared along coastal Kerala with the coming of the Portuguese. This is the Cruzado coin, and this is a coin that has been obtained from several hundreds of Cruzado coins were obtained from Namibia, the place where a lot of shipwreck happened, and in the recent archaeology excavation, a lot of artifacts were being obtained, and this is one among the artifacts that has been obtained. Gold was a major commodity that was being used for purchase of pepper. They used to bring gold initially from Portugal, and Manamotapa gold from Sambasi Valley. It was also being used for purchase of pepper. The Portuguese made a triangular adjustment for the purpose of purchasing pepper. The Portuguese made the traders from Gujarat to go to Mozambique and to Sambasi Valley to sell clothes and to purchase gold in return and take gold to Kerala and purchase pepper for that gold and take pepper to Lisbon and from Lisbon to Antwerp and from Antwerp to redistribute in Europe. This is the strategy that developed after 1505. But earlier, pepper, copper, gold from Portugal was being brought. In 1502, the Portuguese fixed the price of pepper. Per quintal, it was fixed at 2.66 cruzados. It remained the same till 1624. Almost for 122 years, the price was remained to be the same, without allowing the market mechanism to intervene and to determine the price. The annual average of pepper that has been taken, in the initial years, it was 30,000 quintals. But in succeeding years, it decreased. It has been generally calculated to be 12,400 quintals. That would mean 12,400 quintals has been purchased at the value of 32,984 cruzados in Kerala ports, particularly Kochi. In Lisbon, 1 quintal of pepper has been sold at the price of 22 cruzados per quintal. So the same volume of pepper was fetched. It fetched 272,800 cruzados in Casa de India in Lisbon. So tentative profit was 239,816 cruzados. This is not the actual profit. One has to deduct the protection cost, the risk cost, the transportation cost, the entry tax, the exit tax, in order to get the exact figure of the profit. But it gives a rough idea of what the profit would have been. This is the core area of the pepper producing hinterland. You see 7 rivers flowing from the interior and merging into Emerald Lake happen to be the carriers for pepper from the hinterland to reach pepper ports. Chalakudi River, Periyar River, then Muakkura River, Meenachil, Manimala, Pamba, Achangovil. These 7 rivers were the channels through which pepper was being taken from the interior. As I mentioned earlier, this geography happened to be the core area of pepper production from the times of Roman trade on. But with the increasing demand, new terrains were brought under pepper cultivation, and the connectivity was being ensured with the help of river system. And this eventually became the heartland of pepper cultivation. And finally, the rivers ensured their convergence at Cochin during the time of the Portuguese. Another demand that the local rulers, local merchants and the rulers placed before the Portuguese was that 2/3 of the price of pepper that is being sold here should be paid in copper. So huge flow of copper happened. The Fuggers of Germany, the great bankers for the Holy Roman Emperors as well as for the papacy, they came forward to supply copper at the factory of Antwerp, from where it has been taken to Lisbon. And we find these are the copper ingots obtained from Namibia archaeological excavation site. 6,000 quintals of copper has been supplied by the Fuggers. These are the copper ingots in round shape. This is a site from where it is being obtained from Namibia. What happened was the huge inflow of copper as pepper money led to the increasing manufacturing process of copper and bronze vessels and brass utensils, chemba, warp, uruli, kuttagam, kindi, monda, copper vessels, etc., and bells for the churches and the temples. And there's an increasing proliferation of the crafts group called the musari or the bronzesmith, coppersmith, and the brassmith. In centers of pepper cultivation, centers of pepper trade, they became a leading artisanal group in most of these centers, preparing, making urali, making kuttagam, making chemba, making this type of bronze and copper utensils. Economic meaning of pepper, this you are very much familiar, I am quite sure, but I would like to say a few words about it as well. I mentioned casually about the economic meanings as well. The Portuguese used to take pepper. Initially, they took 104,920 kilograms of pepper, 1501, in the vessel of Alvarez Cabral. This is the volume of pepper that has been taken. It increased to 30,000 quintals by 1505. The expedition of 1505 included the Germans, the Fuggers, the Welchers, the Hochstitters, and the Imhofts. The banking families of South Germany were involved, and the Rovalescas of Italy, they were also involved. And the enterprise finally turned out to be highly profitable, and the volume of trade that happened was 30,000 quintals of pepper. And we find equally there was another channel for the world to reach Cochin and the ports, pepper ports. That is the customs duty. King of Cochin used an average amount of 60,000 pardaus in 1605. Pardaus is equivalent to cruzado. Pardaus is a Vijayanagara coin, but the value is almost equivalent to cruzado. 60,000 pardaus in 1605 and 80,000 pardaus by 1612. This is the geography of Kerala, and the major trade centers are being mentioned there. Now, what was the share of pepper that is being distributed from the pepper ports of Kerala? Portuguese got only 40% of the total produce. As per the Portuguese documents of 1520s, the Portuguese got only 40% of the total produce. 19% went to Tamil Nadu through the Cut route, across the Cut, it has been taken. 25% that has been taken to the Ming China or Safavid Persia or to Ottoman markets. 16% was being used for local consumption. This information is taken on the basis of the document of 1520, which M.N. Pearson is also quoting. The Tamil traders, putters, and the lumber traders coming from Tamil Nadu, bringing textiles, rice, and cereals, they were taking pepper back. And Tamil Nadu, it is being called Molaga. And even now, the putters, the Tamil Brahmins, they don't consume red chili, because red chili has been brought by the Portuguese through the maritime channels. Since it was brought by the Portuguese through the maritime channels, they consider it as a polluting stuff. So even now they consume molaga, that is kurumolaga only, that is pepper only. So there's a heavy demand for pepper in Tamil Nadu, because the cultural understanding about this commodity, about the puncheon, other puncheon commodities, they always prefer for pepper. This I thought of just adding in between as a casual information. When John III of Portugal gave his sister in marriage to Charles V, as the Spanish emperor or the Holy Roman Emperor, he gave a dowry of 9 lakh cruzados. Besides that, as a part of the dowry, he had to give 50,000 quintals of pepper as dowry. So pepper was being used not only for economic purpose, not only for medication purpose, not only for flavoring and preserving food. It had purpose other than economic and other than cultural. It had also political use as well. And this became a part of the dowry in the relationship between Portuguese and the Spanish rulers, and the Portuguese had to pay this 50,000 quintals of pepper in the Portuguese factory at Antwerp. Now coming to the other types of impact that pepper had created in Kerala. This city plan of Portuguese Cochin, you are very much familiar with it. This picture may be much more clear. This is the city of Cochin, the Portuguese city of Cochin, the Fort Cochin, not the present day Cochin. The present day Cochin is the third or fourth version of Cochin. This is the Portuguese version of Cochin, the Cidade de Santa Cruz, city of Holy Cross. This is the city. It was being occupied by the Dutch in 1663. They deleted almost 2/3 of the city, and they retained only one-third of city as the Dutch city. And the English reformatted the city again in 1805. And the remnants of the reformatted English city is now seen in Fort Cochin. But when I take your attention to the original city plans, city of Cochin. At this corner, next slide. Yeah. At this corner, this is the Calvetti Canal. The sea is the water channel in between two land spaces is the channel through which ships are now entering the harbour. There's another water channel you find down below Siddhartha Cochin. That is the Calvetti Canal. At the extreme end, you find the weighing place of Pepper. Close to weighing place of Pepper is the St. Augustine Monastery. The central part, you find Fortaleza, the fortress. Adjacent to is the Camera Municipal. In 1527, Cochin was being raised to status of a municipality. And the municipal hall is located there. And Say Cathedral is located there. And then the greatest monument in Cochin, Portuguese Cochin, was this Madre de Deus College, the Jesuit college, 3-storied building. And all of the structures are located in the neighborhood. So this picture I place before you for your visual perception. And this is another city plan, almost the same, but different in details. Now I would like to show you the Google map overlaid over the city plan. You see an empty place located there. Red, near the red color. Yeah? That is the police parade. That's a parade ground. It is a place where the 3-storied Jesuit college, Mother Deus College, once stood. No remnant of the college was there, is now seen there. This is a result of the different erasures and reformatting that happened over a period of time. All in the process of, all in the name of controlling pepper trade. One layer of memory has been replaced by another layer of memory, and it's been replaced by another layer of memory. And memories are being erased continuously in the process of assertion and the process of power establishment. And wealth accumulation happened in an unprecedented way in centers like this. What we notice is centers with wealth became centers of power. Centers with wealth accumulation, wealth concentration became centers with power concentration. And an important strategy that all the congress and rulers done is erasure of the memories of the past, erasure of the structures of the past, so that memories can be deleted, so that memories of the past may not live through. And this will happen, and different layers have been there. If you excavate Cochin, we find different layers lying down beneath the surface level. So this is something about it. This is the picture of Cochin King, drawn in 1502 and kept in the book called Balthasar Spranger's book. I forgot his name. Okay, when I remember, I shall tell you. This is the view, the vista of Cochin from the land side. You see the tallest building standing in mid. That is a Madre de Deus College, the Mother of God College of the Jesuits, which Francis Xavier established in 1549. There were 67 Jesuits in 1557. Now, it's not there. The structures are not there. The Franciscan monastery is there in the neighborhood. Dominican monastery is there in the neighborhood. And the St. Cathedral is there in the neighborhood. They are all erased as a part of the erasure of memories of the past. And this is the perception of the vista of the city from the seaside. When the Dutch occupied Cochin, they deleted a major part of the city and they kept a small part, 1/3, because the Portuguese had a considerable chunk of civil population called the Casados, the Portuguese Casados. The Portuguese soldiers, they married, they settled down as married Portuguese settlers. And they were involved in trade, they were involved in cake making, they were involved in tailoring, they were involved in local trade and petty trade and Asian trade and Asian trade. But when the Dutch occupied, they did not have enough civilian population. They needed only sufficient space that the administrators actually wanted. So a great portion of the space was being reduced. So what we notice with these type of cities, that we will elaborate on some other cities as well, the two cities that evolved, one the native city, which is often be called Sida the Sima, Cochin the Sima, the upper city, the upper Cochin, that is Matancheri. Cochin the Baishu, the lower Cochin, that is the Portuguese Cochin. Similarly, there is the Coilon, there is a Cochin, Coilon, the Kulau the Sima and Kulau the Baishu, upper Coilon and the lower Coilon. Upper Coilon is always the native city, and the lower city is always the European. Same with Kannur and also with Kranganur. Two cities simultaneously functioned, but in disparity. The European city was made to be awe-evoking, visually impressive, magnificent, and visually the architectural structures were being used as a mode of language to convey meanings of domination, meanings of superiority, meanings of advances that the rulers actually made over years. So dual urbanization process happened, but the entire vitality and the dynamics for this dual urbanism stemmed from pepper and trading pepper, wealth coming from pepper, and the relations evolving out of pepper interactions, pepper trade. This is Kranganur. The fort is seen there. Yeah, fine. And then we find there is the Franciscan college there, and the old church of the Syrian Christians and those Christians also there. 2-3 churches were there. Same picture we find in another city plan. Just like the European city was there, in the neighborhood was located the native city, which has been called Kranganur, the Sima. This is Kannur. You see the extended part of the Kannur portals is seen the other side, where some sort of coconut-like structures are protruding up to the sky. That part is the bay controlled by the Ali Rajas, the Mapala Bay. This is the fortress picture, or the plan being drawn in 1624. Now, almost 1/3 of this fortress is now visible. 2/3 of the fortress is now under the control of the Navy. This is the city of Kannur. This is Koilon. The structure that's seen at the sorry, next one. Yeah. Tangasheri door is seen at the remnants of the Tangasheri door is now still visible there. So this is the Portuguese city of Coilon, which is lower city, and there's a Coilão de Cima. So flow of wealth is being followed by concentration of power, followed by new forms of urbanity, where physicality is being used, visually impressive structures are being used to impress upon the locality, to establish claim and domination over the indigenous people and the onlookers and the passers-by. And these touches we find even in the case of Goa, in the case of Daman and Diu and elsewhere also. But just I am referring to Kerala situation because the commodity that has been traded and the commodity around which all this process happened to be pepper. Next. The document that I referred to earlier was 1520. Total production of pepper in Kerala was estimated to be 16,000 bars, 26,000, 26 lakh, 69,280 kilograms. Over a period of time, the native rulers took a pro-pepper policy because the Portuguese gave 72,000 reais to local rulers for taking a policy favoring pepper cultivation and pepper trade. I shall mention the name of the rulers who are being thus favored by the Portuguese. All these are given in the Portuguese documents from 1550 onwards. The ruler of Tekangur, there are two rulers, one located at Kottayam, the other at Kanjarapalli. The ruler of Vadakangur, initially located at Kaduthuruthi, later for want of male successors, the male member of the Kirimalanad ruler of Todupuzha was being adopted and now shipped, then in 1600 it was shifted to Todupuzha. The king of Dayamba, the Kartha of Alve, Mangattu Kaimal, in the neighborhood Alangad, Parvur, the ruler of Parvur, and king of Cochin, these rulers were given 72,000 riyals per year. Almost all these rulers were controlling the significant portion of pepper hinterland, pepper geography. The purpose is to make them take a policy favor pepper production and pepper transportation without allowing diversion to happen through the gut route, so that they may enable pepper movement to Kochi. As a result, we find by end of the 16th century, by 1587, the pepper production increased to 3 lakh quintals. That would mean 1,66,30,000 kilograms, meaning 600% increase in the pepper production. So the landscape of Kerala is being reformatted, reshaped thanks to the pro-pepper policy that the native rulers have been taking during this period. Thanks to the partnership that they entered into at that point of time with the Portuguese. Portuguese got only 3.1%. The rest went to the markets of Ottomans, the Safavids, and the Minks. And a considerable chunk went to the Nayaks, the markets of Nayaks in Madurai, Tanjavur, and Jinji. Next, this is the same pepper geography. Pepper served as an identity marker over a period of time, not only in India but also elsewhere. Dealers of pepper in Germany and Hungary and Austria, they got the surname Pfeffer, meaning pepper. Pfeffer is pepper in German. Who were the people who carried this pepper surname? They were involved in trade with they were the traders or carriers of commodities from the Thuringian company established by the Elector of Saxony. The Leipzig Elector in 1579. He established a company for pepper trade that is called Thuringian company. And people linked with that trade, they got the surname Pfeffer. They were taking pepper to Poland, Hungary, Germany, the Hanseatic cities, Bremen, Lübeck, Hamburg, and Danzig, and to the Scandinavian countries. In Portugal, the dealers in pepper and traders in pepper, they got the surname Pimenta. Even now, many people with the Pimenta surname is there. In Kerala too, pepper became an object of, an identity marking object. The geography where pepper was being concentratedly cultivated and grown and supplied, and that came to be called a reign of the Pimenta. That's the kingdom of Vadakangur. Todupuzha, Pala, Muvattupuzha, Piravam, Koravilangan, these regions come under Vadakangur kingdom. And the ruler got the name Rei the Pimenta, king of pepper. So, besides being an object of trade alone, besides being an object of trade, in the process of its circulation, in the process of its production and circulation, people involved in the production or involved in the circulation, they got names, surnames, identities connected with the commodity of pepper. In 1520, from 1505 onwards, pepper has been declared as a royal monopoly, and 1528 it was being instituted as a final word. And control mechanisms were being erected, Kartas, Kapila, Fortress, and Armada. Licensing systems were being introduced so that pepper trade with the Red Sea ports and the Persian Gulf ports could be done away with. No trade through these ports was allowed because that would mean diversion of commodities. And anybody who carried pepper, their vessels were being captured and their commodities were being drowned and they were being taken as prisoners. And this has been done with the help of patrolling fleet called Armada. And fortresses actually monitored the movement of vessels through the rivers. Rivers happen to the channels through which commodities were taken from the production centers to the fortress, to the ports and to the trading centers. And the vessels were made to move in group, in collectivity, in caravans. They're called, that's being called the Kapila system. So these four mechanisms actually were being formulated to reinforce royal monopoly and to establish control mechanisms in the Indian waters. So a militarization of acute nature happened, confiscation of cargo happened, drowning of indigenous vessels happened in the name of checking of vessels for Kartas. Regular coastal patrolling happened, all in the name of Portuguese control system. This actually led to shattering of the trading capability of indigenous traders to a certain extent. We don't find many capitalists emerging during this period of time. There were trade collaborators, there were partners, but we don't find any capitalists emerging during this period, investing huge amount of money for productive ventures. Another point that I would like to say is it also connected with the pepper and political economy. You know, Martanda Verma's political headquarters was in Kalkulam, Padmanapuram, in extreme south. He moved northward and captured regions up to Angamali. The entire purpose was to capture pepper growing hinterland and to control the pepper. Because he had troubles with the Dutch, the Colonial War. The power of the Dutch depended upon the wealth accrued from pepper trade that is happening in Kerala. You know, charter the base of the trade, he wanted to capture the major pepper growing hinterland and the pepper trading centers. He defeated and captured and integrated all the defeated terrains into Travancore one by one. Tishinganad, Vadakangur, Tekangur, Kirimalenad, Kunnatanad, Alangad, all these terrains were integrated to Travancore. And no commodity was allowed to move over to Cochin, which was being controlled by the Dutch. So the purpose was to cut the tree at the root. By 1743, he declared pepper as a monopoly, and Pandiga Shalas, so storehouses are being erected in major centers like Muatipura, Mavelikar, and many other places, which are the core centers of pepper production. And soldiers were being erected to safeguard the pepper stored there. And they were being taken to the Travancorean port with the help of riverine channels and terrestrial channels. And later, Raja Keshavadas, he was instrumental in setting up a port in Alapi with the help of Tachimatu Taragan and others. And roads were built, laid, canals were being dug, water channels and terrestrial channels were made, so that all the commodities produced in the newly acquired terrains of Travancore in north could supply commodities to Alapi without allowing them to go to Kochi. So pepper was an important reason, rationale, for the political process of that point of time. Same thing happened with Shaktan Thampuran. Shaktan Thampuran captured the pepper cultivating English of Murianath Nambiar, Velos Nambiar, Korati Kaimal, Kodarat Nayar, Kodasheri Kaimal, Ainikur Nambiadri, Airur, Bengalur, Sorupam, etc., and integrated with the Cochin Kingdom. Most of these Kaimals and local chieftains were having mixed loyalties, sometimes to Cochin, sometimes to Calicut. But they were being captured and they were being made to get integrated with Cochin. The kingdom of Cochin was made to evolve. And Shaktanambran, he had trouble with the Dutch in Cochin. He moved away from Cochin and he based his power center at Trichy. And he developed an alternative port at Arnatagara. Using the help of the Syrian Christians of that region. Particularly, they were being brought and kept in different angadis of Trichy, Korati, or Ullur, Irinalakuda, and Kayam, probably the name, Trichy and the similar places. So what I'm trying to say is that the desire to defeat the powerful dealing with the pepper was followed by moves, political moves, to control pepper production and to control pepper trade and take the matter of pepper trade in the hands of the rulers and dispatch commodities from their own trade centers to destinations of their choice. And they started sending vessels to Muscat. They started vessels to Persian ports. This is something that I thought of seeing as a part of the pepper politics that evolved at that point of time. Probably I am nearing the last part of the lecture. Pepper in the process circulation used to fetch different types of identities and layers of meanings in different geographies and cultural contexts. This point that I referred to in the earlier elaborations as well. Pepper from Central Kerala moved to Lisbon under the brand name Cochin pepper. It is different from Chengalur pepper. In documents, always has been clearly mentioned that Cochin pepper is a superior quality pepper. Coming from the hinterland, it is par excellence. It's of superior nature. This is a time when pepper also reached Udupi, Mangala, Mangalore, or Honavar, Batkal. And the Portuguese document says that, particularly the king of Bishop of Cochin, he says that pepper from Cochin was better in quality and cheaper in price than the pepper from Canada, from Mangalore. So there is a brand name being attached to pepper from Cochin. It happened over a period of time. So all the pepper is not of the same quality and same features. So there is some sort of quality updation happening. We find the pepper being supplied in Europe in different forms. Black pepper is there. White pepper is there. By removing the black skin of it, by keeping the black pepper in collectivity, they allowed the skin part of it to get rotten, decay, and then they take the white part of it, wash it and dry it, and then supply the white pepper. So there's a different mechanisms, different process connected with the entire processing of pepper. Even the cultivation needed human skill of a different nature. So it creates a certain level of rhythm, a certain level of pattern in the lifestyle while moving through the pepper gardens, while doing the cutting of the saplings, while doing the cutting of the branches of the supporting trees, by helping the pepper vine to climb up and tying them with the coir. All this became a part of their daily life, causing certain type of rhythm and pattern to evolve over a period of time. And even in the harvesting too, pepper is being plucked, threshed, dried, and processed, and taken to the trade center, seeing the requirements and the demands of the markets. And it decided the nature of the lifestyle of the people, everyday lifestyle of the people who are involved in pepper at the grassroots level. Pepper was also used as a part of the ritual performed in connection with the church festivities. Most of the harvest feasts happen to fall in the period following pepper harvest. Most of the festivities connected with Hinduism or Christianity happen to fall in months following pepper harvest. And pepper is being offered as peppercorns, being offered as nurture, offertory, along with roasted rice and coconut pieces at a time of veneration of saint statues. during the Vestal days. It became a part of the cultural tradition and ritual performance at point of time, meaning pepper is entering in daily life, spiritual realm, and the domains of devotion with a different meaning, with a different connotations. This is a Bepur ship. Kunyali, this is a Kunyali fortress, Kunyali Marika's fortress. They are also replicating what the Portuguese have been doing on the base of the wealth coming from pepper. They are also replicating the same. There is vast spread of literacy because the pepper trade demanded people capable of recording information and accounting. Trade in Europe, the geographic discoveries accelerated the literacy level of Europe. The banking tradition in Europe, it accelerated the accounting tradition, double entry tradition in Europe. Similarly, here also we find there's a need for recording information and accounting. We find jobs of Kanagapilla and translators, lingua, frequently mentioned documents. And they evolved as elitist professionals. Through channels of trade, European cultural practices, culinary tradition, bread, cakes, different varieties of cakes, different varieties of Portuguese foods, dress culture, the European dress culture, the European hair dressing, the European shirt culture, all this started entering Kerala, particularly in major centers of pepper trade. You don't find it spreading in a uniform level and degree. It's spreading to first centers of pepper trade, then to pepper centers where commodities converge. Pepper converge from the hinterland. Then slowly into the interior. Usually the aristocrats who are capable of mobilizing more pepper, who are banking, who are getting more money out of pepper trade, they are the first to emulate the European practice and European traditions in culinary and dress cultures and cultural practice as well. So slowly we find the frequency in writing practice that also got intensified. Separate Malayalam words started evolving. Of course, the Vatteluthu has disappeared, Kolelethu started coming up, but we find clearly distinctive Malayalam letters start re-entering the writing space of Malayalis. These few examples that I would like to show it to you. This is the signatures of King of Cochin, King of Vadakangur, and King of Tekangur in the 1540s, 1530s and 1540s. One can easily read the names, Unni, Kera, Kovil. The names can be easily legible. Unlike the Kolelethu, unlike the Vatteluthu, letters are decipherable. So these writing styles eventually evolved and became part of the writing practices of people in power, people at the bureaucratic section. We know that the King of Cochin had a strong bureaucratic system. One German was a secretary in 1540s, dealing with letters, dealing with the negotiations. So some sort of early modernity, trace of early modernity started coming through the dealings happening in the name of pepper or pepper-related trade, pepper-related negotiations. The slowly started coming. These are the signatures of different other Alangar ruler and others. So what I thought of sharing with you is that we seldom forget about the types of meanings and identities that pepper created over a period of time in different spaces, including the place of its origin, including the place of its circulation, and including the place of its final distribution. At least people, we Malayalis, we the people who are actually proud of being a part of pepper producing land, we should think of the identities once this commodity created and the meanings it formulated and the type of understanding and perceptions with which this commodity was being looked at in the past years. This is what I thought of sharing with you. And questions and queries from your part would further elaborate my presentation and give much clearer explanations, because I thought of just presenting things first, and on the basis of the questions and queries that you raise, I may be able to explain and I may be able to elaborate a bit further. I thank you very much, Professor Michael Tharagan, for being here. Big salute to you, Professor Michael Tharagan, and to all other esteemed guests and scholars. Thank you very much for giving me a patient listening. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Father Pius. We'll come around to official thank yous in a bit. Before that, the floor is open for questions. Please raise your hand and we'll take 5 to 8 questions and go from there.
Thank you so much for the talk. It was really enlightening. I think I'm kind of interested in the forgetting itself. I'm down here. I don't know. Yeah,
Okay, please.
should I stand up?
Yeah, stand up, stand up.
So I'm kind of interested in the concept of forgetting. So how did pepper go from becoming so central to the world economy and world trade itself to becoming kind of a common household spice? Like, how did that shift in cultural significance happen? According to you, of course.
Basically, it was a commodity meant for trade, for economic purpose. And the meanings attached to pepper was 90%, 95% economic. Other meanings are attached because of its increasing use in the domains of economy, wealth generation, wealth procurement, happened to be the reason why people started looking at pepper as a matter that can be looked at as part of cultural exercises and cultural experience. Okay, I think it explains your question. Thank you. Yeah.
How did pepper acquire this much significance? Actually, how much it was, how far was it useful in real life to risk all this travel, such? I mean, how did it become so expensive and so valued? Actually, does it have much significance in real life?
The reason was pepper was the only medication for most of the diseases till 18th century. That's available, okay, for all types of diseases, either in lower degree or in higher degree. In higher concentration or in lower concentration, it was being used in most of the sickness. I don't say that all, but most of the sicknesses. There's no, I mentioned about the shops selling pepper in Cologne before the advent of the Portuguese in Kerala. Around 1 lakh pounds of pepper has been sold in Cologne shops during that period of time. Why? Only for medication purpose. People always say that food flavoring and food preservation was the major purpose of pepper. That isn't something connected with the medication purpose. The need for pepper was high in China all through centuries. That's mainly for medication. In Persia, in Safavid Persia or Sassanid Persia or Parthian Persia, there's high demand mainly because of medication-related reasons, healing-related reasons. But in countries which experience extreme winter, it's used for food preservation, food flavoring. But the main purpose is a medication. Even Kerala, in our tradition, Ayurvedic tradition, pepper is there in every kashayam. Every medication that our parents used to give to us when we were children is there. Wow.
ഓക്കെ, എൻ്റെ ചോദ്യം എന്ന് വെച്ചാൽ നമ്മുടെ ഹിസ്റ്ററിയിൽ ഇപ്പോൾ നെൽപ്പാടങ്ങളോ അതുപോലെ തന്നെ മാവോ ചക്കയോ അതുപോലെ ഒരുപാട് കാണുന്നുണ്ട് നമ്മുടെ വിഷ്വൽ ഹിസ്റ്ററിയിൽ. അതുപോലെ നമ്മുടെ ഇന്ത്യൻ വിഷ്വൽ ഹിസ്റ്ററിയിൽ ഇത്രയും പ്രാധാന്യമുള്ള കുരുമുളകിൻ്റെ ഒരു വിഷ്വൽ വളരെ കുറവാണ്. അതിനെങ്ങനെയാണ് കാണുന്നത്? എങ്ങനെയാണ് അത് ഒബ്സർവ് ചെയ്യുന്നത്?
You want the answer in Malayalam or in English?
Even in English is fine.
Okay, fine. You know, the picture of pepper or jackfruit, what will be the fruit that you mentioned, mangoes, they are drawn for the first time in Garcia the Horta as a part of the information that he wanted to collect and disseminate under colloquial symbols. There, the picture of pepper is there, along with the mango and anyway, Hortus Malabaricus, it's there. Even in the old painting, in the old sketches, it is there. So for the Portuguese, it is a matter of great curiosity to see and to pass on this information to people in the mother country. They used to do it. They used to draw the sketches. But why mango trees and jackfruit trees are there in plenty? Maybe in present times, it has more greenish and more fleshy look. Probably that may be reason. And it may be giving a good type of soothing and cooling effect for the eyesight. I don't know what would be the reason, but the pictures and sketches of pepper is there right from early time onwards. As I mentioned earlier, in the book written by Cosmos Indica Plusters of 545, picture of pepper is being depicted. In medieval times, lot of drawings were being made depicting pepper plants, but in the way they perceived, in the way they understood. They did not see pepper plant directly. They did not get first-hand information. On the basis of the hearsay, they depicted the pepper plants. So it's not a question of depiction alone. It's a question of wealth. In after the 18th century, things change. Medicinal practices change. Our knowledge about the health change. The curing and healing system change. And the need for pepper for preserving food also was not needed because other mechanisms for preserving food started coming up. Then the only demand for pepper that still continued was flavoring demand for flavoring food items. And from 1800 onwards, which again mutated and transformed our original perception about pepper.
Thank you. Lovely. I want to draw you out away from Cochin, away from Kerala, because much of your conversation has been lensed through, let's put it this way, the Portuguese set of writings, the other player being the Dutch. The movement to Batavia and their centering their power and the trade there, how much did that cause upheaval here? And why is it that that part of the geography, the Indonesian archipelago, not get as much of a revenue or the benefits of the trade, as you so eloquently put it, in contrast to what happened here? I just want to pull it out because it's a greater story than just Kerala here.
Thank you. Because I am being asked to say something on pepper in the shaping of Kerala's destiny. That's why I focused on pepper of Kerala. And regarding the question, pepper was there in Southeast Asia from 7th century. Java and Sumatra, Nasha as well is there. But in 16th century case is one thing which we don't find in the 17th century situation. 17th century was a century of textiles, textile trade. 16th century was basically a century of trade in spices, particularly pepper. Because pepper started entering Europe through different channels. By the point of time, pepper started moving from Southeast Asia to Europe. They were involved in taking textiles from India. They were least bothered about pepper trade in Cochin or in Kanganur or Koilon. They were more interested in getting commodities as return cargo for their textile trade. Because the Portuguese were supplying the markets with pepper and other spices. What they wanted was, and they profited heavily from textile trade. This is the case with the English as well and the French as well. So 16th century case is a unique case where pepper dominated or spices dominated. And the domination happened mainly because of the fact that there was only one supplier for pepper in Europe, that is Portuguese.
Thank you, Dr. Pius, for your wonderful presentation. Just like the pepper cultivator thought, your presentation actually creates a lot of contradictions in our minds with respect to the popular perception of, with regard to pepper cultivation and the contribution to the local wealth. So a couple of connected questions. One, do we have enough information to make an assessment of the ranking of pepper cultivation in terms of value of the medieval kingdoms with respect to, say, paddy or coconut locally? Because I also noticed the price of pepper that you mentioned, which is very drastically increases when we go to the Middle East and to Europe. The connected question is, in our understanding of the caste system that evolved during this period, you have covered 2000 years of our history from the early historic period. In the Kerala's caste history and our understanding of that, we find wealth concentrated on castes that probably controlled paddy cultivation. So with respect to that, where do we fit this in? And third connected question, a long question, do we have folklore from the St. Thomas Christian communities or the Irava communities regarding pepper cultivation practices? My questions are on pepper cultivation. We all know from high school regarding pepper trade. Some of it came from the forest initially and later from cultivation. But the cultivation and its wealth, it's a mystery. If you could throw light on it with respect to paddy and
Thank you.
Yeah.
The question with regard to paddy, I would like to say, paddy is not cannot be cultivated everywhere. It can be cultivated only in an area where waterlogging is there, where stagnated water is there, water supply is regular. And that type of land was being inherently occupied by the people in power, obviously linked with the Brahminical category. People who control the land, people who control the production, created a social order where they sat at the top. People who could till the land, who actually produced, they were kept at the bottom. And the rest were kept at the different rings of the intermediate levels. Production activity happened in that hierarchy order, meaning only people at the bottom produced. The rest enjoyed benefits out of the produce in different levels and degrees on the basis of the sharing. With a feudal system, obvious effect. And the value of produce is meager. If the produce is actually for consumption, it's not for market. Kerala did not ever produce surplus rice. It's a food deficient enclave, Kerala. Till recently, till independence, Kerala was a food deficient zone. Earlier period, when the 12th century, 13th century, 14th century, 15th century, 16th century, we used to get rice from Orissa. Traders going to Ganges or going to Bengal for supplying pepper, they used to take rice from Orissa. That's the reason why it's been called Arisi. And the word Ari comes from that. Rice was being taken from Tamil Nadu and Karnataka by supplying pepper. Pepper was the major cargo for getting rice. Even in the Portuguese period, we find pepper being taken all the way from Cochin to Bengal. This is a time when forests were being cleared with the help of Sufi sheikhs, the eastern Bengal. And the newly cleared forest area, which was being subject to rice cultivation, they used to take pepper, rice in return for the pepper being supplied there. While there's a vast difference. Pepper value is determined by international value, except in the case of Portuguese times. There are multiple players and actors and traders in the scenario. People who could offer more price, fetch more pepper, and quality-wise superior pepper. So we cannot compare coconut. Lot of trade was happening in coconut. Coconut was there in plenty, but its use was completely highly restricted, only for the purpose of making oil, not for anything else. And the husk was being used for making coir. We got a better quality coir from Maldives and Lakshadweep. So the meaning, what is the nature of demand that decides the price and the value of the commodity? Okay, so coconut and the other thing that you rice, they are no way closer to pepper. Because Kerala did not produce enough rice to feed its own people. And true, and we had our own alternative system, China, Kachil, and so because tapioca was introduced only recently in 1865. We had our own എന്നാ പറഞ്ഞേ ഈ കുന്നിരപ്പയിലൊക്കെ നമ്മൾ നെല്ല് വിതച്ചിരുന്നു, പല സ്ഥലങ്ങളും ഒരു കൃഷി ചെയ്തിരുന്നു. So when you look at the agrarian history of Kerala, the midland part of Kerala, that's the Adanad region, was not suitable for rice cultivation. The garden type of, the Thotan type of region was set aside for coconut cultivation. The slopy region was being set aside for pepper cultivation, where no other cultivation could be done. And the hilltops were being set aside for growing bushes, which later they used to cut and put in the paddy field for manure purpose, and for using as a shade for the ginger ginger platforms. Okay, so the topography of Kerala is such that paddy cultivation cannot be done all over Kerala, only on the low-lying water stagnated regions. As a result of which, we need to depend. We had to depend upon pepper-yielding regions of Orissa, Tamil Nadu, and Karnataka. And pepper was the commodity that was taken to procure paddy from such regions. Okay.
Thank you, sir. I have a question from YouTube. This is Sebastian Joseph. Dr. Sebastian Joseph was watching the lecture and has a question for you. He says, thank you for the insightful general lecture on pepper memory and landscape. Here's a question related to Kerala's historiography. So it's a related question, but framed by a historian for us. How might we reconceptualize Kerala's historiography through a Broadelian who authored Mediterranean and Memory geostructural lens, foregrounding the sea, the midlands, and the high ranges, along with commodities such as pepper, spices, tea, and the forest wealth, as a counterpoint to the dominant wetland and paddy-based narrative. Could such a shift illuminate the deeper spatial logic that shaped colonial urban formations and reveal how these layered geographies continue to inform the contemporary spatial imagination of Kerala? Much of which you have answered, but if you can also...
Okay, fine. So what I want to say in this regard is that the Brodelian perception actually would help us to understand Kerala's situation in a far better way. Because there is the sea-related development on the one side, activities shaped by the mechanisms of the sea, the rhythms of the sea, the patterns of the sea, the monsoon winds of the sea, actually decided the course of cultivation, the course of harvesting, the course of manuring, the course of removing the weeds, etc. has been conditioned by sea-related activity, monsoon winds, monsoon currents, rainfall, etc., etc. So there is one pattern that we can look into on the basis of Brodelian thing. Earlier, there was a notion of Aintinai, which we are all familiar with, I hope. There are 5 ecozones in South India. There's Neidal Tinai, where fishing, salt making happened. Then there's a Marudan Tinai, where low-lying land is being available for paddy cultivation. Then there is the Palay, Maridam, Neda Paridam. Then Mullai Thirai, where the grassland is available for grazing cattle and sheep. Then there is a Paletine, which is a parched land, dry land, where Kallars and such type of people are living. And there is a Kurinji Thine. So it's something connected with the ecosystem. The historians have been dwelling upon it. They have been arguing about the interactions happening between the professions of each Thine. It's not watertight tinas and watertight components. They have a mutual link through chance of trade. Commodities from Neita has been taken to Palay Thine for getting pepper, to Gurunji Thine for getting pepper. Salt from Neithal, fish from Neithal being taken to Indian land. So there's a mutual linkage of Tina distributing system and the Tina trading system. At the same time, this is the local development, and there's slight variation that happened over a period of time. Otherwise, this Edanadu, Malanadu, and the Thiranadu, Thira Pradesham, or coastal line, this still existing. And the Edanadu or the midland region or the upland region, mid-upland region, that happen to be the major spice producing centers in Kerala. Not the coastal line, not the extreme forest. Extreme forest region became pepper producing centers only in the 20th century, not before that. So there is a ecosystem that actually that favored and facilitated pepper production. And in the long durée perspective, this study can be done. And then we can also look into the meanings of changes that is happening with regard to pepper geography, with regard to volume of production, with regard to the impact factor as well. So this is the rough answer that I would like to give to Dr. Sebastian to the query that is being raised.
Any more questions? Mia? We are done.
So what is the modern scientific basis? Is there any basis for this pepper as being curative of most diseases? Or is it was it just because there was no other way?
In my suggestion is, when I was young, and I had when I had this fever and cold, etc., my mother used to give me chukumello. Chukkum molagum vellam kudiya. There's a pepper always in it. Yeah.
This is
And when there is a cough related or throat related problems, we mix pepper, ginger with kalkanda. Then the cough is gone. And when I say pepper, it doesn't mean that pepper as not as a single commodity, in mixture with other commodities. Not as a single commodity. We don't take pepper as a single commodity. Sambarnathu pepper മാത്രമല്ല ഇടുന്നത്. പക്ഷേ പെപ്പറാണ് അവിടെ ഈ ചുവന്നുള്ളതിന് പകരം. Pepper is used as an ingredient, as a component. Okay? Yeah.
okay. Last two questions from our.
Sir, excuse me, sir. See, and according to you, a huge amount of wealth came into the Malabar area, but where is all that wealth now? We don't see any wealth. We don't see that much of wealth in Kerala anymore. And to top it all, where is all the copper and bronze vessels? We don't see that anymore. Where are they all gone?
Yeah, thank you. What I referred to is not Malabar to Kerala. Kerala at that point of time was known as Malabar. We did not produce anything valuable other than pepper. In all other places, there were secondary production units of different nature, textile production. There were other types of cultivation which fetched more money. There were other types of commercial crops. But Kerala had only one or two or three crops that actually fetched foreign wealth, that's pepper and chincha, which actually sustained this economy. The present day Kerala model of development did not happen all on a sudden. It happened as a result of the continuous process of wealth accumulation, wealth utilization, and then the related activities that happened in the 20th century. But long before it, there was a considerable amount of wealth coming in different. I don't say that the wealth was shared by everybody by in uniform degree. No, I don't say that. Because the people, entrepreneurial segments of people, they had more wealth. And people who were brave enough to go and clear the forest and cultivate the pepper plants, they had more wealth. But people who could not move beyond their own locality, they could not share in the wealth that was thus generated. Even, in the 20th century, 1920 onwards, people were migrating from Kerala to Malabar region and from high-range regions. People who went there, they actually made wealth. And that wealth is being confined to people who actually put in effort, who saw some sort of entrepreneurial potentials in their migration and their activity. But that doesn't mean that that wealth was being shared by everybody. But in the process of recycling of this wealth, it was being shared by the residents of Kerala, the inhabitants of Kerala, in different forms, not directly, but indirectly, in the process of filtering, in the process of recycling. This is the point that I want to make it clear.
I'm not a question, but just some engagement with pepper, which I have been having, and I think we have here people who are cultivating pepper. I'm a cultivator of pepper also engage pepper from as an attraction for travel and tourism. So my one engagement with pepper was that with the which is again there was a German. In fact, he came in as an NGO with Father Pitapalli. He was the initiator, and it's Rudolf Buehler. He produced the biggest producer of sausages in Germany, organic, and he wanted organic pepper from Kerala. That's the engagement we had.
Great.
So as a result of which he came, and as a result of which, as a pepper grower, I grow pepper, but I grow only Karimundan pepper.
Great.
Because Buehler used to sell pepper in Germany, Karimundan pepper, whatever his theory is that the same pepper as Vasco da Gama bought. That was this. So not any modern varieties of pepper. Then the next is that the pepper trade with the Jews. In Jewtown there is a place called the Pepper Exchange, which now doesn't function anymore because it's all gone into the computer. And that Pepper Exchange is actually a monopoly of the Gujarati. Only those who know Gujarati can trade there. Under the kerchief, they have the trade.
They used to touch their fingers.
And you have to speak Gujarati if you want. You have to learn Gujarati if you want to trade in that. Then with the Jews, the Pardesi Jews, like right now I have just come to possess a building which was owned once by in the 18th century by Rahabi Ezekiel, a Jewish family, and in the synagogue we see a plaque which says the tiles from China and the clock tower have been donated by Rahabi Ezekiel in 1758.
Rahabi is a great company trader, Rahabi Ezekiel.
His house I happened to purchase from a great, 6 times great grandson. And now I'm restoring it to, it had gone to many hands, restoring it to for tourist residence.
Oh, great.
So coming again, the real reason is it becomes that the Jewish connection with pepper,
Yeah, yeah.
with pepper trade, and well, we believe
Yeah,
that
Christian.
we are all, if you call the St. Thomas Christians became Christians, and St. Thomas came here because of pepper. That's why it's very easy to come here, get on the pepper ship, and you are here.
Yeah.
And so, fascinating account. I believe that it's about time in Kerala that we set up a pepper museum.
Exactly.
The great story that is there.
Yeah.
It's so much exclusive to Kerala,
Yeah.
pepper. And in fact, I identify with pepper as a grower, and I grew up on the banks of the Meenachal River.
All great.
So from farmer to tourism, and then of course that's my interest in the history of pepper,
Great.
and of course in cuisine, in culinary,
Oh.
in Jewtown or in the along with we are trying to discover the cuisine of the Kochini Jews, so the cafe there will serve cuisine of those Jews. I don't know. We are not able to establish what the role pepper had in that. I'm sure it had a very special role, different for the Jews here as for the Jews from other parts of the world.
Excellent.
And it's a fascinating story,
Yes,
pepper, and I think worth preserving in a museum to make money not just from selling pepper, but selling the story of pepper.
Yeah, great. I perfectly agree with your suggestion because I've been working on pepper for the last 35, 40 years. So, I mean, I'm fascinated by the accounts that you mentioned as Rabbi Ezekiel, you know, that he was a major pepper supplier to the Dutch, and he was almost like a merchant capitalist. And he was a leading Jewish merchant that sustained the trading activities of the Dutch till 1750s, 1760s. Good that to know that you are.
What I did not mention is that Rabbi Ezekiel was trading not only in pepper, but also opium.
Yeah, excellent.
On that wonderful anecdote shared by Joseph, I think we'll bring this session to an end because we are now almost 2 hours on YouTube, and our funder has very specific time limits, which we have overstepped by an hour almost. So considering this was the first inaugural lecture and we had to do justice to this topic of pepper, and we have Dr. Malekandathil here all the way from Kodamangalam, we said, okay, let it run on. But now any further questions, we'll take them offline once the YouTube live is cut. Before that, I'd like to say thank you to you. On behalf of the Kerala Museum, the Madhavan Nair Foundation, the Georgette Foundation, I thank Dr. Pius Malekandathil for this enlightening lecture on the structures that unfolded around pepper trade, the political strategies deployed, and the curious cultural understanding of this fabled spice. The journal lecture series made possible with the support of the Georgette Foundation, and we extend our heartfelt thanks to them for their partnership and commitment and mentorship to this exciting program. With every lecture, we have a wonderful expansion of interconnected ideas, especially with work that pulls from so many multiple sources and adds to the richness of the journal archive. Thank you.
I should also thank you for the patient listening and the stimulating interaction.
Yes.
And the questions and the queries that you made.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate and congratulate you.
Thank you all for taking the trouble to come out in the wet, pouring rain. We were fearing that, we may not have such an enthusiastic audience, but it's lovely to see you all here again. Look out for the next lectures. We'll be announcing them on WhatsApp and on YouTube. And on Instagram. So please watch out for them. If you have not saved the Kerala Museum number yet, please save it, send us a hi, and we'll definitely get back to you with your latest update. Any further questions? Already Father Pius has been speaking for 2 hours at a stretch, but if you want to come and meet him, you can come and meet him, if that's okay with you. Yeah.